At this time, I would like you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to have the
Pastor Ron Kiker from
Pastor-
Countryside Baptist.
You know, I had that written down. Okay, but I was struggling looking for it.
I thought maybe you were having trouble there.
I'm struggling with my paperwork. I haven't been the acting chair for a while. All right, so please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you and praise you, Lord, this morning, Lord, and we recognize your glory and your power and your might and your sovereignty. And so we come before you this morning looking to you, asking you to be in charge and lead our hearts in this meeting this morning and in our government and in all the decisions that we make. Father God, that you might be glorified and pleased by all that we do. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Thank you, Ron. Have a great day. As we've been doing for the past month, if not longer, we're going to have a special update on the coronavirus by the Health Department. Director Nick Baldetti, followed by Emergency Management Director Adam Weshar. Nick, do you want to start?
Morning, Commission. Nick Baldetti, Reno County Health Department Director, appointed Health Officer, Reno County. I'll give a brief update, then a few changes to the general response that have been communicated on our 8:30 calls, but to also make the public aware. And then I'll stay for any questions, either after Adam's report or before. Your discretion. So. As of this morning, United States, we are at 1,961,187 cases in the United States with 111,007 deaths. Those states surrounding us, the state of Colorado has 28,169 cases with 1,543 deaths. State of Nebraska, 15,786 cases with 188 deaths. Oklahoma has 7,205 cases with 348 deaths, and Missouri has 15,158 cases with 823 deaths. For the state of Kansas, as of yesterday, we are at 10,650 cases. 936 of those have required hospitalization, with 236 deaths. For Reno County, we've tested 1,955 constituents with 1,909 negatives. We have 46 positives, 3 active cases as of today, with 43 recovered. We're running a positive test rate of about 2.35%, and we've tested 3.11% of the population thus far. Again, those numbers in terms of positive test rate, sub 3%, which is good. We hope to continue that, but then also, over the last 2-3 days. Let's see, today's Tuesday. 3 days. We have had a few more positives come up, but I just would continue to communicate that that's to be expected. We expect to find these. If we begin to see some more heightened activity in terms of day-over-day increases, we'll obviously analyze the activity associated with those positives and then communicate appropriately. Additionally, I wanted to make the Commission aware, we meaning Adam and myself, have been in conversation with our group in the mornings that we have our traditional 8:30 sit-rep calls. A few, probably, about a month, Adam, is that right, that we scaled back to 3? We scaled back to 3 calls a week, Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. This week we had a conversation yesterday with the group, and we're going to be scaling back to 1 call a week on Tuesday mornings at 8:30, right before our commission meeting. So we've moved that back. Additionally, based on the activity thus far, the health department specifically, we're gonna start releasing a press release weekly on Fridays for the duration of COVID-19 activity. versus releasing a press release every time we have a new positive. Again, if we were to have some sort of atypical circumstance or a cluster type event or something to that effect, something that warrants more rapid communique versus just we found a single positive, they're in home isolation, something to that effect. We'll make sure to push that out in rapid succession. But generally speaking, just as a kind of a situational report of singular new cases, those will just be encapsulated in one press release weekly on Fridays. So anyway, just to kind of scale back a little bit in terms of trying to push out a press release every time we have a positive lab result come back. So outside of that, the governor signed, I don't know the exact number, but signed the House bill yesterday. So I will be sitting down and reading that actually this morning to look at broad scale implications for, as the appointed health officer, implications for Reno County moving forward. And then the new district attorney, Tom Stanton, has also graciously offered to sit down with me and discuss as well after I've had the opportunity to read through the new bill. So moving forward, that's what I'll be doing today, just to see if there's any standing implications in terms of Reno County's response that we should be aware of now that it's been signed into law. So other than that, unless you have any questions, I would offer to have Adam come give you an update.
Just a couple points of clarification. You said you had 3 active cases. What's an active case again?
Yeah, active case is an individual who has been tested, is either is still presently showing symptoms and or is within the 14-day window post-symptoms. So they may not be showing symptoms, but they've been laboratory confirmed as having COVID-19. Okay. They might not have symptoms, but they have to wait 14 days to not be classified as an active case.
So they're a confirmed case, but there's no hospitalization, nothing like that?
Yeah.
They're just doing the 14 days or however many days at home it is?
Yeah, it's 14 days post-symptoms. So if I don't know off the top of my head, but if all 3 are non-symptomatic right now, they just have to move through that 14-day window.
Yeah, you educated me that last week on the new CDC guidelines. And so then again, once they come off those 14 days with no symptoms, they don't get tested again because they're symptom-free.
Right. And
so then they move on to our recovered status.
Exactly.
Okay. And then I watched TV last night, and I don't know what channel it was. They have us listed as 53 cases. You have a different number?
Yeah.
Just so that people can kind of keep hearing the reason why we have different numbers and what others present us as?
We continue to get this question as well. So the state Kansas Department of Health and Environment on their landing page for the state continues to list us in the 50s. I think it's like 54 now.
Okay.
We're at 46. The reason for that difference is that in Reno County, we have stood by the fact that we will only report laboratory confirmed positives. The state is also integrating into their state reporting the listing of probable cases. For Reno County, we haven't listed a probable case. We haven't listed a case as probable for Reno County since tail end of February into early March, in part because at that time testing was so hard to facilitate. As time has gone on, now anyone who requires testing can get testing right now. No one should be turned away, and therefore we're not labeling probable cases. So we're already talking about these cases that have been listed probable as being longer than 45 days old, which is far outside of the window of recovery. So they should be recovered already, but they are continuing to be counted at the aggregate level for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and that's why there's a difference. So we are only reporting laboratory confirmed cases here in Reno County on our dashboard, whereas probable cases are still being counted within the KDHE's dashboard, and that's why there's a difference.
Okay. I like your changes with the meetings to once a week, and I especially like Adam not pushing it around the room to everybody to levels of silence, but instead saying, if you have something, please share. And I think you'll the shorter the meetings are and the more focused they are, the more you'll have participants. Commissioner Hurst?
No, I have no questions.
All right. Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
Adam?
Good morning, Commissioners. Adam Weiser, Emergency Management Director. Just a few things for you this morning. The House bill that Nick was talking about is House Bill 2016. One of the things that does is it extends the disaster declaration for the state of Kansas out until September 15th of 2020. So that's good news for us, meaning that we can still request resources and everything through the state, and nothing really changes on our front. To request resources through the state, they're still requiring a disaster declaration or a public health emergency to be declared by the county, which we have that in place until mid-July. So we're in good shape there. Across Kansas, there's been 104 counties that have declared a public health emergency. We're included in that 104 number. Of those 104, 94 of those are still current. The state EOC from a state level, they're an all hazards state EOC, so they're monitoring the civil unrest as well as the COVID-19 and any weather that might be moving in. They're monitoring weather, and we're getting daily updates from the Weather Service now on those calls from crystal ball moving in from the Gulf. As I'm sure you've seen, the temperatures are expected to dip approximately 14 degrees today, and we're expecting wind gusts over 50 miles an hour. So they're monitoring that as well. KDHE is monitoring 153 clusters, 91 of which are active and 62 are closed. And then the state of Kansas also has published a reopening plans dashboard that is public facing to the community, so you can see what all the counties in Kansas are doing. How that's published or how that information is brought about is there's a survey sent out to all 105 emergency managers that's asked to fill out that survey every Friday, and then they'll update that as the county dumps in new information. So that is a public-facing document. I think that could be valuable to some of our business communities that travel around and conduct business in our surrounding counties. So from my standpoint, things are slowing down a little bit, which is good news. We still have 2 daily conference calls to the state, Monday through Friday. Over the weekend, those are scaled back to 1 call per day. And then our burn rates for our personal protective equipment are due to the state every Wednesday. I'm going to try to do a resource request every Wednesday. And then, like I said earlier, opening surveys are due to the state on Friday. So we're slowing down, but we're still continuing monitoring. With that, I don't have anything else for you.
Any questions, Commissioner?
I think Adam's covered that pretty well.
Yeah. I've got a quick question. This is an unfair question, but I thought of it earlier before I could email you or Nick. Are there still states that are considered, I don't know, hot zones by KDHE in terms of coming back? And I'm just curious as to what they are, if you know what they are. And I should have emailed you, and I apologize. I mean, I'm thinking California, I'm thinking New York, but I don't.
So there are still states. I believe Nick's going to be
Yeah, he's trying to pull it up. And Nick, I'm sorry,
No, you're good.
but I just thought of it. And you seem to be, you two seem to be the answer men for all of this.
Yeah, no problem. Nick Baldetti, Reno County Health Department. So still recognized by the state, which these states require a 14-day quarantine from traveling to and from, is Connecticut, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, New York, or if anyone's been on a cruise ship or river cruise or traveled internationally. So those are the thresholds that immediately send someone into a 14-day quarantine.
Okay, that's self-selected.
So, define self-selected.
It's on the honor system.
Yeah.
I mean, if I go to Connecticut and come back, no one's there's no one at the Kansas airport saying, "Oh, you're at Connecticut. Just so you know, here's this," and someone's going to check up to make sure that you did the 14-day quarantine.
You'll probably most likely receive some sort of information or sheet because the Kansas Department of Health and Environment will actively be monitoring flights in and out.
Oh,
But outside of that, obviously they're not monitoring the the state lines. So if you're driving, in that aspect, it is the honor system. But even then, if you're coming from a flight, say from Connecticut, you'll get information, but most likely that'll be divvied down to the local health department, if at all. And I say that with an asterisk because we haven't gotten any kind of heads up information from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment in terms of follow up on this person because he's known to travel from X state.
Right.
So generally speaking, in aggregate, I think it is an honor system deal. But if we happen to find out, you're probably just going to, hey, understand that you traveled, best practice, please isolate for 14 days, and that'll be the end of it. So.
Okay. And then another one I thought of, and I'm glad Commissioner Sellis in here because he goes crazy when I come up with these questions. But, so the protesters on Saturday, they weren't social distancing. Were they wearing masks, gloves, anything? I mean, that wasn't an event of 100 people, so they were obligated to talk to us about it, I guess. But were you or maybe Adam involved in terms of advising them on social distancing and the rules in Reno County as to how we handle this? Or
I don't want to speak for Adam, but I know Adam and I were involved in some of the same planning meetings from a response perspective. Mm-hmm. There wasn't necessarily much discussion around health recommendations. That being said, I know that the facilitator wasn't necessarily didn't garner support by local groups, the NAACP, the civil rights groups that we have here in Hutchinson. However, it was communicated to them for best practices. Additionally, just simply because the timing worked out, there was a press release that went out this weekend from the health department announcing another case that we had, in addition to also specifically discussed, peaceful protesting, just asking for mask use, social distancing, best hygiene practices, things of that nature. And from the pictures that I saw, I wasn't personally in town, but from the pictures that I saw, it looks like there was masks. There was some masks.
There were some masks,
yeah.
But it was not like everybody had a mask.
Right.
And they were well within 6 feet of each other as a general rule from what I saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I was just curious
Yeah,
about that.
no problem.
In general, you probably just continue that recommendation with the fact that if one travels on business or pleasure or has someone come in for business or pleasure from some of these states and cities that have hotspots, is that you're recommending, suggesting that they be super cautious and try to, as much as possible, use that 14-day from the time they have had contact with, been in the other states or something, to use extra caution?
Yeah, I think just maintaining an awareness and monitoring of one's symptoms, if symptoms should present themselves. Additionally, I think regardless of traveling, again, this is KDHE recognized, so that's above Reno County in terms of its mandate. But that being said, everything that I think everyone is so used to hearing now today can still be instituted as a best practice and really protect, hope to protect yourself if you have to travel for business or what have you in terms of hygiene practices, upper respiratory etiquette, mask use, and then trying to distance yourself as best as possible on interstate travel or just generally in general activity even within our community. The other thing, just because we're on this topic and it's relatively new information, it was just announced by the World Health Organization that there seems to be, it seems to be presenting itself that those individuals who are asymptomatic, that asymptomatic spread, so those that are not presenting any symptoms but technically still shedding the virus, that transmission of asymptomatic individuals seems to be very rare. Now, new information is coming out, which is very good news. That was a question that was asked on our 8:30 sit rep call this morning. I preferably, just by the nature of my role as the health officer, I just want to make sure to kind of delve into the academic studies that are feeding that information from the World Health Organization. But that being said, WHO wouldn't necessarily make that public of a statement if there wasn't some data to support it. So anyway, World Health Organization making that statement is very good news in terms of the aspect of that would suggest that those presenting symptoms are much more apt to spread the virus versus those not presenting any symptoms and it just kind of silently spreading, if you will. That's really good news moving forward, which means that our isolation of those, especially with symptoms, is best practice measure to really stymie the spread versus, if you remember a few months back, the real concern about how many do we have walking around that aren't showing any symptoms but are actively spreading and exposing people to this. That seems to be much less of a factor of broad scale spread as we once thought. So that's really good news.
Yeah.
So,
I'd be interested to have you add that to your report next week when you go through the data.
mhm.
Because there's going to be some percentage that did spread it and some that didn't.
Right.
And so I'd be curious to know if this is an 80-20 or 60-40.
Sure. Yeah. As
type
soon as
of
I can
deal.
dig through
But you're
that,
right,
I'll-
that is good news.
Yeah. I'll make sure to add that to whatever findings I can glean out of those studies.
Just keep it simple.
Yeah.
All right? Third grade level.
Sure.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Any questions, Commissioner?
No.
Thanks, Nick. Adam, thank you. I know you gentlemen have work to do. We're going to have Darian Campbell call in.
I'm going to call him.
Yes.
So right now we're dialing in the sheriff, Darian Campbell, who's going to talk about the protest that happened this week and the work that the Reno County Sheriff's Department did in regards to it, and answer any questions the commission may have.
Hi, Sheriff. You're on, Commissioner.
Sheriff, how are you doing today?
Hey, good morning, sir.
Good, so you can-
Darren Campbell, Sheriff of Reno County. I was just
Hey, Sheriff, hang on a second.
apologize for not being there in person. This just happened to be the day that we as the administration take a day to focus on the agency and fall back and see and review some stuff and policies and events and leader stuff, I guess. So.
Okay, great. Well, we didn't want to take you away from that and drag you all the way up here. Actually, we were just looking for kind of an update and it's kind of a sit rep, if you will, on Saturday's events and what the Sheriff's Department was able to accomplish. And if you just want to talk about that, that'd be great. And we may ask you a few questions if that's okay.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. So last Wednesday afternoon, I was in a meeting and I got called out by the chief of police. I stepped up to take the phone call when he advised me that he had met with the organizer of this march, Black Lives Matter march, that protest march down Main Street. His concern was that multiple community leaders of Hutch Harmony, NAACP, other organizers that we've already been working with throughout the city, the county, had met with this organizer and informed her that we were taking steps to do good stuff and we were moving in the right direction. Apparently, she had refused to take any guidance, so they began to move forward. She said she had an organization coming in and busting in people. As we sat with Hudson Police Department, we began to gather resources and look across the United States on civic events that had taken place. He had reached out to several chiefs of police within the state that had events going on, to include Gordon Ramsay over Wichita, Topeka, some of these chiefs in the network, and what they were doing, what they allowed them to do, and how it went, and some of the civil disturbance that has resulted from it. So, with the focus possibly not only in the business arena, but the government arena, as far as the law enforcement center and the courthouse, we started to make plans and decide what we were going to do to accommodate this. Do I have any questions at this point?
I don't see any. Please continue.
Okay, so I know the staff and the police department got together and they came up with a plan. We started to involve some other community partners, Hutch Fire. We got EMS involved, Adam with emergency management involved. We reached out to the Department of Corrections. I know us as an agency, the Reno County Sheriff's Office has a memorandum of understanding, and we work together with the Department of Corrections. They're an asset. They're in our backyard, and we're, a lot of times we're working toward the same result. So we brought in all these community partners to make sure that the community was safe. This was led by Hudson Police Department, Police Chief Hooper. He took the primary because this was an event in the city. But as we worked together and came up with a plan, what we did is we pulled some deputies that were certified through the state of Kansas and had some patrol experience out of the correctional facility, put them on an assignment. We assisted the police department in basically trying to secure wherever there was going to be any mass gatherings formed, and tried to make sure that there was no civil disturbance that would interrupt other people's daily lives. So Friday morning, that was the plan. By then, we found out that the time had adjusted, or had it. The organizer was pretty vague in a lot of statements that was on her event page, so it was very unpredictable, and we had to remain fluid and react to what we believe could possibly happen within the community. So, with that being said, we all came in as organized Friday morning. Into the afternoon, it resulted in nothing going on. We didn't know if that was due because work complications. We had no idea. So about mid-afternoon, we decided to reorganize, put a different plan together because we didn't know if maybe they were going to start gathering Friday night. So we went ahead with a plan there to have officers come in, work with the Hudson Police Department in trying to locate some sites, hotels, parking lots, wherever mass gatherings could occur that they felt that they could conduct it at and begin their protest. However, that night resulted in nothing going on either. So we cut the hours short. I think everybody got home about 12:30, 1 o'clock Friday night, Saturday morning, with intents of coming in, and our first meeting was going to be at 09 Saturday morning. This is all while maintaining normal operations, signing beats, still patrolling the county. Just this is all in addition. So Saturday morning, we met our first meeting with the Hudson Police Department, and we had our own meeting as well. Assignments were given. We maintained security over government buildings throughout the entire project. By the time 11 o'clock came, there was reports of, there was only about 25 to 30 people gathering at 30th and Main. They were very receptive to law enforcement. So throughout the whole buildup of this, we received intel through open source of other counter protests occurring within the city. There was a possibility that people were again being bussed in of another organization that was named in the event. So we had no way of knowing what to expect or how to react. So we just kind of focused on what we felt was the best way to protect the community and any third party. So as the event took place about between 10 and a quarter after 11, the folks, protests moved into the street. The Hudson Police Department, I believe, had some vehicles in front and behind and to the side. This was to help protect and guide them while they went ahead and was able to voice their opinion. We allowed them to go ahead and move down the street and do what they needed to do. They initially announced that they was going to stop at every intersection and pause on it and take a knee for 8 minutes and 57 seconds. That was due to the event that had taken place in Minneapolis. It was hot. I think the times got adjusted, the intersections got adjusted by them, by the organizers and those protesting. So they were basically escorted down. Traffic was stopped so they could allow us to turn at 14th to 15th Street on Main and transition and travel back to the north. where once they got back to their starting point, the crowd kind of just dissipated. And I know the sheriff's office continued to have a couple patrol units in the area around, in addition to normal patrol, just to respond and react to anything that might occur and need additional units or to be there for the community. We also reorganized again. We didn't know if there was some residual events that might occur later that evening. So we went ahead and planned on having a couple more units again. That would be out till about 2 in the morning. And that was to basically incur anything that might develop from that. Everything seemed to be pretty quiet. Overall, there was 36 additional deputies on duty throughout the event. That put in a total of 266 and a half hours overtime on this event throughout the time that happened. And this is with even cutting some stuff short and sending people home as stuff, we found out that stuff didn't occur, but still trying to plan and organize and predict what could occur and keep the community safe. A lot of the stuff we did was in concert with other agencies, the Hudson Police Department, South Hutch Police Department, everybody in the community, as far as law enforcement, every emergency responders came together and just wanted to do what was right by the community, and I think it worked out rather well. The people got the protest, they got to voice their opinion, do what they needed to do, and by right they have the right to do that. I think it went well, and that about sums it up, gentlemen.
Okay. I believe Commissioner Hurst has some comments or questions.
I think everyone should realize how important it is for the cooperation of all the agencies involved, as well as the citizens of the county and the city involved, to use their American given right to let their voices be known. I want to give a special thanks, I think, to NAACP, Daryl and Doctor, for their communication and their process. By having that on a Sunday afternoon, then coming back that last Thursday and having a meeting there at the Memorial Hall, it wasn't frosty, let's put it that way. It was pretty warm, but good communication, cooperation, and not only from the citizens, but from the local churches and pastors from some of the local churches. And starting that more in-depth education process. So just wanted to give a shout out to the folks that made those things happen like they should be.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think the NAACP and the faith-based community did a great job, and they encouraged people to not attend this organization, this protest, if you will, on Saturday, because it was not worked with them, done with them. It was not organized at a level that they were comfortable with, and the fact that they did not support it, I think, just says a lot about the quality and the character of our local chapter and its leadership. And I want to thank them for, number one, as you said, having responsible protests and getting the word out on what they believe and their thoughts, but at the same time, not just buying into another group that just shows up. And so I think that was great. Sheriff, I just wanted to compliment the law enforcement. There was a strong law enforcement present there, but it did not shut down the protest. It didn't hamper it. It allowed those individuals to do what they wanted to do. And this is exactly the type of situation that overtime is made for. And so while we all complain about overtime, this is one of the times I will tell you that that was 266 hours well spent. It's important that we're out in the community. It's important that you're prepared for every event and you don't feel hampered to put officers' lives at risk by not having enough personnel in the locations that you need them. So I wanted to compliment you on that, and I'm sure you'll remind me of that statement come budget time, which is coming up. But it is something.
This is just one of the
It does, and there may be more, but I think you took the right tack from what I've heard you say about officer safety and making sure that there's a strong presence. I can tell you from the drone footage that you shared with us when this group was praying on the at the intersections and blocking traffic, but there was a number of law enforcement vehicles around those folks that was not only protecting them from traffic, but also kind of keeping them encapsulated so they could have their protest. They don't have it in the middle of the street, that's fine, but law enforcement's going to be there shutting down traffic and make sure that nobody gets hurt. And I think it's important to remember that you and HPD, I would imagine, was the primary force there, but was making sure that the protesters were safe. And I think that's important in terms of having that level of appreciation and respect that we took care of our citizens, our property, and then the people protesting. And I think that's the goal for law enforcement. And I think that you and everyone else did a great job with that. And I appreciate your the hard work that you did on that yourself and the many hours away from family. Is there anything, Brandy, would you like to add anything?
No, I just, Sheriff, I also appreciate all the communication that you gave staff here in advance so that we could prepare and plan for possible worst case scenario to protect the employees and the citizens of Raynham County.
Okay. And I guess that's another good example. I know the commissioners feel the same way, but when I was asked if we should shut down the annex and the courthouse for half a day, my first comment was, well, if we're protecting our employees, then we should definitely do that. I'd rather give up half a day's pay, half a day of service, and pay for that service than have one of our employees get injured. And I know Commissioner Hurst, also Commissioner Sellers, feel the same way. I believe we all were supportive of that decision, and I think that's the best way we need to continue to look at it, because our best asset is always going to be our employees, and that's not just the law enforcement people out there, but also the staff in the annex as well as the courthouse. So again, and I appreciate you having officers at our facilities to ensure that there was no property damage to our public buildings.
Absolutely, and thank you all for the comments. I can't take compliments alone, because the staff really spent a lot of time planning. Like you said, the deputies, everybody that pulled time away from the family, the time off they're supposed to have on a beautiful weekend and spend with their families and wives. And events were sacrificed, but they gladly did it, and that should show to the public that we have great people working in great positions that want to provide and do good things for our community.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate that your work with the Hutchinson Police Department. I know there's always a level of competitiveness between the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department, and that's to be expected for groups that work so closely together. But I think from everything I've seen and heard, the two organizations did a great job in fulfilling their roles, and I really appreciate that level of professionalism on both parties. So again, thank you for that. If there's no other questions, we'll let you get back to your management meeting. Thank you very much for your time.
If I can make one more, just a couple more comments.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I kind of want to give a shout out to our drone program. One of the benefits that we saw Friday night, even though there weren't any events calling, there were some concerns of citizens that were called in that they felt were mass gatherings that were started. And as we had the drone up, the capabilities of that device, we were able to look in the parking lots. It was manned from the courthouse. We were able to look at parking lots at the Kmart, 30th Lorraine, on certain reports. 5 minutes before officers were able to arrive to make sure that either we was able to document something taking place or confirm or deny what was taking place. So that was a phenomenal device to have throughout this event. And I would also like to say that on behalf of the staff and the Raynham County Sheriff's Office that Mr. Floyd's family, Mr. Floyd gets justice, and we are working, will work, and continue to work to make sure that however that agency failed those officers, we strive not to let any of that happen in our community.
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate your time, and I know you have things to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, have a good day. Thank you.
Good. Bye.
You know, I want to comment,
Oh, please.
Bob, regarding our sheriff. He attended those meetings that NAAC put on for the community. He was there and attended and listened.
I think the more participation we have, the better,
Yes.
especially with law enforcement, especially given all the different things going on with law enforcement that we keep reading about in the country. It's very nice to know that we don't have those. I wouldn't say that we don't have those issues here, but we're not dealing with the level of animosity and the level of concern and the problems that I continue to see and hear and read about. And I think that says a lot about our leadership at the Sheriff's Department, also the Hutch PD.
Cooperation and communication.
Sometimes it seems real simple.
It does seem simple, but and it's something that has to be worked at all the time
I agree.
between citizens and departments.
I agree. I agree. Public comment? Is there anyone outside that would like to speak to the commission? We have several people here for planning and zoning meetings, I know, but I don't know if we have anybody here from the public. We're checking right now.
Items not on the agenda.
I missed that? Oh, I did.
Just thought I'd add a little. No one?
Okay. Is there anything that Commissioner Hurst you would like to add to the agenda?
None.
Okay. I don't have anything either. Randy, anything? County Councilor, do you have any items to add to the agenda today?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay, thank you. And we have no public comment? Consent agenda? I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. We have vouchers in the amount of $363,475.22. We also have signature for a chief elected officials agreement with the Kansas Workforce Investment Board, Local Area 1. We have the renewal of a license agreement with the City of Hutchinson for the installation of signs, benches, and RCAT bus shelter facilities on city property. And we have a report on the 5-year update of the solid waste management plan for South Central Kansas Solid Waste Advisory. I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda submitted by staff as I've delineated.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as provided by the staff.
I will second that. We have a motion, we have a second. Any
Only thing
discussion?
I would say is we've all received those documents that cover what is contained within the consent agenda.
Yes.
And have reviewed those, and I don't believe if we have any questions, I don't have any regarding that.
Yeah, and I don't either, so please call the roll.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes?
Commissioner Bush.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Well, we got
Next item would be discussion and action items, and this would be, the first part would be, Tom, if you want to come up and, I wouldn't say introduce yourself, remind us of who you are, and talk about your new role, and what we could do to support you and make you and your team successful over there in the District Attorney's Office.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. This is obviously the first time I've had the opportunity to come before the commission as district attorney. I had an interesting first week. I do also want to compliment all law enforcement. I was involved in some of those meetings in preparation for the peaceful protest. There were a lot of concerns that I shared with them. And I also want to thank the Commission and Randy for agreeing to close the courthouse on Friday. I think it was the prudent thing to do. I had concerns from my staff, I know, and I think most of the department heads did. So I know it's not the best way to get the work done, but it was the right thing to do. So I really appreciate that. As far as what I'm hoping to do, I attended that forum last week. I thought that the discussion was very good. I thought it was hot. I was actually in a suit, so I was pretty warm. and maybe they can find an air-conditioned place to do it next time. But I thought that the discussion was really positive, and I think it reflects well on this community and the relationship that law enforcement has with the citizens, that we haven't seen the kind of violence that they have in other places. I think that we are able to come together as adults and sit down and talk about things and strive to make life better for everyone in Hutchinson and Reno County. So I appreciated the opportunity to at least be there and observe what was going on. I don't know that a lot of things are going to change in the district attorney's office. I've been in there as a deputy for 19 and a half years, so I was involved in creating a lot of the policies for the office. I do want a close relationship with the commission. I hope to, when I get a chance, to come down and just talk and and get to know you better, so that you can get to know me better, and not talk about budget. and not, I don't want to make those. Can I have this and can I have that? We've already tried pretty hard to accommodate the requests of the commission as far as cutting funds, and we were able to do that. And I certainly understand the predicament the county is going to be in because of the COVID-19 shutdown, and so hopefully we'll all be able to work together and have a good relationship going forward. I have a good staff. I think we've got an environment up there that makes people want to stay. They've got a full complement of attorneys now. We just hired a new one, Chris Noon. I would like to get him down and introduce him to you. Have you all met all the attorneys in my office?
Not personally.
I don't think so.
Well, you're welcome to come up.
We need to come up there, don't we?
Either you can come up, or I can bring them down at some point in time.
I think bringing them down would be good, because I keep hearing how busy they are, and it definitely would be by appointment only, so it's not like, oh, hey, come talk to us, and they're in the middle of a case or a workload, or they're not even there because they're in trial.
And I may just advise them that they need to come down and introduce themselves when they have the opportunity.
Yes.
Because I think it's important that you know the people. We have a good staff. Most of the staff's been with us at least 3 years, with the exception of 2, and I think that they're doing very well. Chris is not actually a licensed attorney yet. He hasn't taken the bar, but so at this point he is waiting for his temporary license so that he can represent the state of Kansas. He's very much in learning mode right now. He's got a pretty high learning curve, and so he's spending a lot of time in court and watching us do things and talking to me and other attorneys in the office. So I would like to keep you apprised of everything that's going on up in the office. It is a busy office. We very much have staff who are continually working. You won't come if you drop in our office. You will not find people sitting there twiddling their thumbs. I can tell you that. There's a lot that goes in to what we do, and it seems like more and more responsibilities are placed on the district attorney's office and county attorney's offices. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the new bill that was signed by the governor on the COVID-19 response yet, but there will no longer be misdemeanors associated with violations of health orders. In order to enforce them, I now would have to file suit against someone. So the problem with that is that's going to cost the county money. Just in time, my office would be exempt from filing fees, but in order to file a civil suit and bring suit against someone to enforce orders would be a lengthy and time-consuming process. There's a second provision that allows me to file an injunction against someone who's violating a health order, which would be a little bit faster process. But there is no provision for violation of an order that's criminal. The only criminal act now that I saw in the new legislation is for violating contact tracing protocols that are set up by the statute itself. And so for someone, if they were involved in contact tracing and they gave out information they shouldn't have, that could be a Class C misdemeanor. But that's the only criminal violation that I see now in those statutes.
So that's actually the person that was doing the contact tracing?
Right.
And then
There's
they
a-
shared with somebody else who that person was with in that process. That person is the one that is potentially liable for some sort of criminal activity?
Right. So if
or action?
if Nick is basically in charge of that process.
Right.
And so he hires someone. There are certification processes now. Before you can be going out doing contact tracing, there's a certification process. Once they're certified, and I'm imagining those certification processes have mostly to do with making sure that private information is not shared. That information that's gathered by the health department is not subject to subpoena, and it's not subject to open records. The only way to get that information would be by warrant, which would be a situation where there was some criminal act that the court found there's probable cause a crime had been committed, and that somehow that was evidence of that crime. But as far as what the statute does is it puts the onus on the organization and on the people who are actually doing the contact tracing to keep that information confidential and make sure it only goes to the health department, and only the information required goes to the health department. So, I know that there are people within the community who are concerned about contact tracing and their freedom and their personal information. There's a criminal provision that does protect that information. So, a person could be put in jail for 30 days for a violation of a Class C misdemeanor. So, hopefully, that will be enough to keep people from sharing any information.
Can I ask a follow-up question? I don't want to get into the
Sure.
weeds here, but one thing I'm curious about. So, if, let's say, Joe Smith is positive, he knows he's positive, and then he, let's just say, goes to work and doesn't say anything, doesn't tell anybody, doesn't do anything to not spread the coronavirus, and he gives it to 3 people at work, just 3 people at work. Is that a criminal act?
I don't have the statute in front of me.
I mean, just off the top of
I-
my head, I'm just curious.
There is a spread of a communicable disease, but I don't think it would cover that situation. What we would be able to do is we would be able to file a lawsuit against that
This is
person.
where the lawsuit comes in.
And we could file a lawsuit against that person and recover damages. Those damages would go into the county general fund if we won and they were paid in. So there could be, depending on the judge's determination or the jury's determination, I suppose, a large monetary cost for doing something like that. So
Sure.
that hopefully will be enough to dissuade people from that, and hopefully just a sense of duty to your fellow citizens.
Well, we already had one case where a person failed that and got
Right.
4 other people positive, according to the health department and their contact tracing. So I just thought about it again in terms of what you were saying about the new legal system that's in this order.
So the situation you're talking about, information I think that we received later suggested that perhaps he didn't know, that person didn't know. And I don't know, I didn't follow it all the way through. But once, the old system was, you were found positive, you were told to stay home. The way we were doing it, the way Nick was doing it, he was telling people to stay home and everybody was doing it except for maybe one person.
Right.
We changed that so every time you got tested, you received the information, you had to stay home. You received an order to do that. And I can tell you a funny story here in a minute about that. But if they violated that order, that written order, then we could charge them with a crime. But because it becomes really dicey, because you've got someone who's COVID positive or positive for a communicable disease, you're going to arrest them and put them in jail. There are some real logistical issues, as we found out, and as we discovered in talking about that, with that concept. So I think that one of the problems that the legislature saw was criminalizing certain behavior, and especially as it went to assembly and the freedoms we have, such as our freedom of religion. We did not want to see a situation where there was a criminal penalty for going to church. Now, if you create a problem, you still be sued. If you created that kind of a problem, and we would have to consider whether or not a lawsuit would be appropriate under those circumstances or not, constitutional under those circumstances. And I haven't given that enough thought to really comment on it. But I think what we can do is we can always get an injunction as well, get a court order. A court order is enforceable by contempt of court charges. So if we were to go and get an injunction, serve it on someone, so you're to stay in your residence, they violate that, then the judge can put them in jail for contempt. So there still could be jail time, but it would be through that process.
Okay.
That makes sense?
No, actually, I mean, it does, and that's kind of why I was trying to get down to where we're at now with this legally, as it seems to become more nebulous. And harder, and as you said, more difficult for you to take legal action against a person, which is probably what we want, I think.
Right.
I mean, I think that's our goal, is to convince people to make common sense decisions based on the science and the data of the coronavirus, as opposed to trying to threaten them into behavior changes.
Yeah. Well, I experienced actually the issues with the test. The Thursday before I was sworn in, I had a sinus infection. Now, I've had sinus infections for a long time in my life, and I know what one is, and I know all I need is antibiotics. But I went to a new doctor who was really young from my point of view, and even though I just had a sinus infection, he decided to test me for COVID. And so I received a piece of paper that said, "You are now 48 hours, or until your test returns, you're at home." So I worked from home, but I also missed Keith's lunch then on Friday, his going away lunch.
Oh.
And I was scheduled on Monday morning to go to be sworn in. And so I got my test back. I talked to the doctor. The doctor says you're fine. Antibiotics are working. And then it turned out that the doctor who'd given me the test had not done it sufficiently, and my results came back inconclusive, not sufficient sample, and they wanted to test me again. And I said, well, there's no way if I test on Saturday at 1 o'clock, that I'm going to have those results by 9 o'clock Monday morning. So I asked to talk to the doctor again, and he determined that I really didn't need to be tested again. But I did follow. I followed the protocols because even as public servants, we need to do everything we're asking people to do, and I can tell you it disrupts people's lives when they have to stay home for until they get those test results back. So it's a dose of reality. But I'm just glad that the doctor talked to me and said I could. I was fine and didn't have to take that test again.
I'm sure you used a lot of your very years of legal discourse to convince him that was the best path.
Well, I said, I did say, I'm supposed to get sworn in as DA on Monday morning at 9, and that may have had some effect on the fact that they didn't think it was necessary for me to get tested again. So.
Well, good.
Well, congratulations, and look forward to working with you.
Well, I look forward to working with you, and my door's always open. If you have any questions or I can be of any service, just come on up to the office, and I will send my attorneys down. And just so I know, what's the best time to send somebody down to meet you? Are you guys here all the time, or are you here office hours?
It'd be just to contact us by email and make an appointment.
Okay, I'll have them do that.
That'd be great.
And so you can meet and know all the faces from the DA's office.
At least do our best.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, have a good week. Next item will be Planning and Zoning Case 2020-02. It's a request by Rita Quillen for a homestead agricultural lot split as provided under Article 3-106 of the Reno County subdivision regulations. I believe we are bringing in some members that are with that group.
This might be a good time. Boy, that's echo.
Just get there.
Huh?
Just jump right in there.
Might be a good time to kind of review the normal policies that we have in front of, that have been established for planning and zoning. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mark, but when that application is taken, then it's before the Planning Commission will determine that their permit process, that they have a public forum, public input to provide that information, either for or against, and why that process takes place. And then the Planning Commission will make a decision after that public comment period. Then during that time, before it comes to us, there's a specific time period that they have to give notice of a planning and zoning change or a CUP. Then, if there's anything new that comes up in between that time, then the person who has knowledge of that new information can come to Mark, the Planning and Zoning Director, and can then he can take that into consideration for decision on how far to bring it up here and to bring it before us with that new information. Is that right?
That's correct.
So
That's
basically,
correct.
there's an opportunity for people to speak right there at the public hearing, and if there's any more new information that comes after that, then to contact the Planning and Zoning Director, which is Mark Von Atchen, and then they can bring that back to the Planning Commission because of new information that has come to light. And then the Planning Commission can review that new information prior to bringing it to us, or that new information can be presented to us, and we can make a decision on whether to go ahead or send it back or deny it. Is that correct, Mark?
You have several options at this point in time. You know, you can approve the case, you can deny it, or you can refer it back requesting additional information or something else for the Planning Commission to review and stuff.
The time for public input is basically at that public hearing.
The time for public input is at the public hearing, and once the chairman of the Planning Commission closes the public hearing, then the time for additional public input is closed, as well as additional information. And like you had said before, if there is other information that an applicant would like to speak, and then they would have to submit a request, and then the county commission would review that information at that
Okay,
point.
thank you. Just wanted to review that policy.
All right. And then also the second piece of that that's also new as of last year is that if once the case is filed with planning and zoning, then we as commissioners cannot collect or contact or collect new information. Anything that is sent to us, we need to direct everybody to planning and zoning, specifically to Mark, to make sure that he gets the information and is presented to the planning and zoning for as part of their discussion. And that is not an attempt for the Reno County Commission to not hear or have public comment. The goal is to have all the public comment go to the planning and zoning, since they're the ones making the initial decision. And so we want everyone to be heard. And if it comes to us, it's not heard. It has to go to the planning and zoning, and that's where it's heard. And so it's important that we continue to put that message out there, because I think it's relatively new, just a year old, and that creates some confusion.
It's the role of the Planning Commission to conduct the public hearing and stuff, and we don't want to conduct a second public hearing at this point, because the possibility would exist where new evidence could be introduced at this level that the Planning Commission did not hear and have an opportunity to review. And so that's why public comment at this point in time is shut off at this point,
and
as the record is closed.
Right.
You know, and that's as one who's wanting to hear everything, to make pertinent as to, even if I had a case, I'd want to try to present my case as far as I can. But there's a proper procedure to go through, whether we like it or not.
Yes.
That we need to follow and to make it legal.
Absolutely. We definitely want to be in compliance with the laws of the state of Kansas, and at the same time give everyone the opportunity to be heard.
Yeah.
And their comments be considered in the vote that really drives the process, and that's at the planning and zoning level. Even though people think it's at the commission level, it's really not. It's at the planning and zoning level.
And that way, if anything new is brought up, that go back through the proper channels here to contact Mark, the director of the planning and commission zoning, to bring that information forward and to then either let us know or let the planning commission know that, hey, there's new information here. We might want to consider this again prior to that.
It's really the job of the applicant to submit all of the information that is necessary to be able to prove the case, and so it would be very difficult, I think, to have new information that was not known or could be discovered at the time of submittal of the application. But there is that opportunity for somebody to try and do something like that.
Yeah, if somebody's like me, we might forget something, and then all of a sudden we find some new information or something that needs to be brought back up, or at least be noticed.
Sure. And that gets to the process today. So Mark is going to present the first case, give us all the information. We have a packet of data from the planning and zoning and their recommendations, and then we will not have a public comment here at this meeting, because that would be, again, the information that we cannot receive that has to go through planning and zoning. And therefore, why don't you go ahead and start with Planning and Zoning Case 2020-02.
Okay, I'm Mark Von Atchen, and I'm the county planner. And as you said, Mr. Chairman, this is a request for a homestead agricultural lot split. The basic premise of the case is to place a second residence on this 80 acres of property. This is a legal non-conforming tract of land, so it's, and unfortunately it's a very difficult situation in order to place a second house on 80 acres given the fact of the way the parcel is shaped. A homestead agricultural lot split is actually found in our subdivision regulations. However, it does follow the same statutory procedure as you would with a rezone or with a conditional use permit. We have a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission. Planning Commission makes that recommendation, and then that recommendation is forwarded on to the Board of County Commissioners. It is really the job of the Board of County Commissioners to review that information and then make a decision on whether this request qualifies as a homestead agricultural lot split or it does not. In my report, you'll see that I provided the applicant 5 options to try and avoid going through this public hearing process in order to get at what he ultimately would like to have is what a second residence out there. The bulk of my report that you'll see here, it really focuses on the many types of regulations, both in the zoning regulations and also in the subdivision regulations that really go into deciding whether this qualifies as a homestead agricultural lot split. I would really draw your attention, though, to Article 1-104 and the definitions of the zoning regulations. And in that article, we have a definition of land used for agricultural purposes. I had that listed in my report. There's also a multitude of things that says that what is not agricultural purposes. I would also draw your attention to like the first 2 that are in there, and it explains that just because you would have farm animals on a parcel land does not mean that you are using the land for agricultural purposes, as it is defined in our zoning regulations here. Like I said, there are many factors that go into determining whether this qualifies as a homestead agricultural lot split. In the end, reviewing this case and reviewing the actual application and the evidence that was submitted in that application, staff recommended denial of this request because I do not believe that it qualifies as a homestead agricultural lot split. On May 21st, the Planning Commission did conduct a public hearing, and at that public hearing is an opportunity to submit additional evidence or present that case. The applicant, which is present in the audience, they showed pictures of animals that are on the property currently. We just heard recently that this parcel is now being leased for cows. That was not part of the original application. And we also heard that the owner is actually submitting receipts for farm expenses on that property. And so that was all new information that was not available in the application, but the Planning Commission did hear that. The Planning Commission did have some concerns with the driveway access. If you look at the site plan, it is essentially a 20-foot driveway. It is asphalt or asphalt millings out there, so it is a hard surface. I reminded the Planning Commission you can look at that concern and take that into consideration, but really that's really no different than any other person that would have a parcel of land and choose to build 500, 600, 700, 800 feet back on their property. It's a private driveway. It's up to the owner to take into consideration the risk that would be involved with having a long, skinny driveway back to where your house is versus having something that is, say, closer to the road. So the Planning Commission, looked at that, but, in the end, based off of the public testimony that was presented there, the Planning Commission did recommend 5-0 to approve the homestead agricultural lot split, and they did attach 3 conditions of approval, so they did go against staff's recommendation based a lot on what happened as far as new evidence presented at the public hearing. So with that, I would conclude my presentation and stand for any questions that the Commission may have.
I think the first question I have for you, Mark, would be, given the new information and hearing the discussion at the meeting, being personally there, would you still maintain your denial, or would you move towards a potential yes on this?
I was asked that question.
What's your gut opinion here?
Sure, I was asked that question by the chairman of the Planning Commission, and like I say, that evidence wasn't presented in the application.
Right.
To me, I'd asked for something because I felt like that was going to be the real crux of the case, if you will. Is this land being used for farming purposes, as defined in our regulations? To answer your question, and I think I still stand by. I think the evidence that they submitted certainly helps their case. I think on the surface, I would say it could probably be considered to be agricultural purposes. But in the end, I still don't have the evidence. I don't have a lease agreement saying that they are, leasing out for cows. I don't have any kind of tax information that says that they are actually submitting receipts for farming expenses. I mean, that's not to say that they're up there just lying or anything like that, but you can say anything at a public hearing, and so I don't have that hard evidence in front of me. So I think the evidence that they had and presented at that public hearing certainly helps their case, but I don't think it really sways my opinion of that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I attended the meeting and heard the process, and based upon what the Planning Commission has recommended by unanimous, I would move to approve planning and zoning case number 2020-02 as presented.
I would second that. Discussion? So I guess the discussion part is just going to be me saying to you, Mark, that I really hate going against staff's recommendations, but I hate even worse going against a representative body of citizens that are basically supporting this effort unanimously.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you appreciate that, but again, I didn't want you to. I guess I just wanted to say I still love you. You're doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate that,
and I understand that you're basically saying I don't have this in front of me, so I can't verify it, and until it's verified, it didn't happen. And I understand that perspective, and I support that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner. And like I say, a homestead lot split to me, if you look at it, it's meant for say old farmhouses that are sitting out in the middle of a section of ground that has maybe 1,500 feet back from the road. no way in the world the house could ever meet any of our zoning regulations to be able to split that off. So we have this provision in place for just such a situation like that. This was a little bit unique, of a parcel, and yeah, I just felt like I did not have that evidence, in front of me. You could not tell that it was actually being cropped, or you couldn't tell from aerial photos or any other evidence that they were using it. It just looked like an 80 acres with a bunch of trees on there.
Sure.
And stuff. And so no, so it's fine. I based my recommendation, like I say, in my report. I have a disclaimer in there that's prepared prior to the public hearing, and that's one of the purposes of the public hearing is to gather new information. Planning Commission looked at that, and they made their recommendation based off of what they saw and what they heard, and that's perfectly fine. There's no hard feelings on that end.
Okay.
I thought they did have a lot of good discussion that not only centered around that portion of those 101-4, but also future, which I don't know that that's quite appropriate, but nonetheless, it entered into that fact that what was going to happen later on, if that was done, is that still, and so I thought they did a really good job of discussion on that. I think Randy was there also, so.
Yeah. At that public hearing, it was also disclosed that the existing house, once Ms. Quillen is done living there, that will be demolished and torn down. So there will be, ultimately one house back on that property. Again, saying that doesn't mean that plans can't change. Once this land is split, that house can stay there forever, and he can rent it out. He can, sell it to somebody else. He could tear that house down. He could rebuild a new house, because once the land is split and this is approved, just because he says he's going to tear down doesn't mean that, okay, you can never put another house out there. And so that was also explained and discussed at the Planning Commission, meeting as well.
Yeah.
So.
Any further
I have no
discussion,
more.
comments, or questions?
I have no more.
Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Bush,
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. The next case will be 20-03 for Joseph B. and Susan K. Leonard Trust.
I believe there's somebody in the audience maybe that would want to hear this.
Yes, they're going out to see who's there. I do think we have to find some way of communicating to folks that if you do come, it's great, we love to have you here, but you're not going to have the opportunity to speak.
It's announced at the
Is
Planning Commission at the conclusion of the meeting, and I usually announce the potential date that this is going to be heard in front of the county commissioners, and then I also announce that you're obviously welcome to attend. It's an open public meeting. However, you will not be allowed to address the county commissioners regarding this topic.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so the next item, we, as I said, planning zoning case 2020-03. Mark Vanachin, if you'd like to talk to this.
Sure. So this is a request by the Joseph and Susan Leonard Trust, and what they are looking at doing is constructing a telecommunication or cell tower on the property. This has gone through many revisions here. We started out on one parcel that Mr. Leonard owns with his house. Several months ago, that was withdrawn due to public concerns with that. They made application again for another parcel that Mr. Leonard owns to the south of where his house is. And then the whole virus situation happened, and so we had to kind of delay this. But the original request was to construct a not to exceed 199-foot tower. The plan submitted originally said it was going to be a 195-foot tall tower. Based upon review by the FAA and stuff, the highest that they can go is going to be now 178 feet tower. So a few of the issues that we had to kind of work through with this process here.
Hey, I'm sorry, I want to jump in real quick. Is that a hard rule by them, or was it based on the location?
It's based off the location.
Because of the topography?
It's based off the proximity to the Hutchinson Airport.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. FAA has to review all the towers that are going up, and if the original proposal of 195 foot was too tall to meet their requirements, and so they had to scale that down.
So the FAA comes in, it tells you how big your tower,
Yeah.
how tall your tower is going to be.
Yeah.
Based on. They're variables.
based on whatever
their
criteria
variables
they
are,
use.
yeah.
We
Okay.
that's why originally we had published this in the newspaper, and you might have saw my little point of clarification at the end of my report where we published it as a 199 foot tall or not to exceed 199 foot tall tower. When you do something like this, you can always go less than what is published in the paper and what is noticed to the public. You can't go higher, so there's no way that we could have gone to 210 feet
Right.
without re-notifying everybody here. You can always go less because of the fact that, what you're wanting to do is 199, but now we only want 178 feet. So that is okay, but you just can't go higher than what is requested here. And so a few of the issues that we determined, based off of the site plan that we had to work through, right as you enter Mr. Leonard's property, there's a parcel just to the west of here. It actually looks like the applicant would have to cross another parcel, and so they had to acquire a small easement to cross the corner of their land. There is also, if you looked at the map that I provided, there appears to be a small parcel that is in between the two parcels that Mr. Clark owns. We had worked through that situation here, and based off of the letter that was submitted by Homer Gilson, who's a registered land surveyor, and some other research, that parcel really does not exist. What it turns out to be, it appears to be different ways of writing the legal descriptions and different points of beginning, and so that created a small tract in there that really does not exist. And so after we worked through that, those situations here, we explained that to the Planning Commission. I would draw your attention, though, to in 2018 there was a state statute that was passed by the legislature. The main focus of that was on towers or communication devices that are in the road right-of-way. A second phase of that statute also dealt with towers on private property, and there's a whole litany of like 17, 18 things that the governing body, the Planning Commission, cannot consider when deciding a cell tower case. And so really with that, we're really limited in the types of things that we can really review with cell towers here nowadays here. This tower, upon that review, it complies with our 1-to-1 setback requirement. As I stated previously here, this tower, had to be shortened due to the FAA requirement. This tower is also going to be required to be lit. Okay. Usually, you will see as any tower that's less than 200 feet does not have to have lights. The FAA does not require that. But for the fact that this is within 3 miles of the Hutchinson Airport, the FAA is going to require that this tower have lights as if it was over 200 feet. So that will also be a requirement. The next part of my report actually talks.
Excuse
me.
No. I just like to jump in. I'm sorry. That's just kind of how I roll.
That's
so on the
fine.
lighting, which everybody hates,
Yep.
right? But it's an FAA requirement. Is this flashing lighting?
It's going to be the minimum that is required by the FAA. Usually, you're going to have your red light at top at night, and then probably
That
the white
flashes.
light, during the day.
All the time.
Whatever the FAA is going to require. It was not disclosed at the public hearing what the daytime light will be, but if you see in my conditions of approval, it says that they'll have to do whatever the minimum requirement is required by the FAA. Nothing more than that, and so more than likely, it's going to be probably a flashing white light like you see
Okay.
during the day.
Thanks, Mark.
I got a.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you brought that up.
We're more of
the
a
light.
jump in kind of group, if you don't mind today.
That's perfect. I'm good with that. I
I
can
got
roll with it.
one other later
Okay.
on. But has FAA on these smaller towers, will they allow ALDI,
What's that?
aircraft light detection radar, ALDR, excuse me, aircraft light
Oh.
detection radar?
That I don't really know. I did not look into that. I couldn't answer that, truthfully. I can't tell you if they would allow something like that.
And I've got, well, go ahead. I'll ask this question later on.
No, I'm going to ask you a question. What does ALDR do?
It detects, it's an automatic light system that within a certain distance of an aircraft, then it comes on.
Then it comes on.
Detects the aircraft within a certain distance. Then it comes on. When that aircraft is past a certain distance, it turns back off.
So there's no activity and the tower's dark.
Dark
Until
and-
there's a
Detection.
Until it
Yeah, it
senses an
senses.
aircraft
Mhm.
within certain X miles of it.
Yes.
ALDR, okay.
I think that's a proper, it's ALD something, and maybe.
I wonder how
but-
expensive that is.
That's kind of beside the point.
Well,
You know,
not as a.
I don't know.
Well,
I
not
do
you,
not
this
know.
person selling that tower, but yeah, I know what you're saying. I was just curious as to
Yeah.
whether that's a
I do not know.
5,000 deal or a 30,000 deal.
Who know? I don't know.
Okay, I'm curious. Okay.
I don't really have any basis for my reasoning, but I would say due to the proximity it is to the airport and
Yeah,
their
understand.
language, I would say they probably would not allow something like that to occur due to it's that close to the airport. If it's something further out, they might consider like that. If it's not within a landing path of an airport, they might consider something like that. But like I say, I really don't have any idea.
I know it's allowed on some properties
Right.
that extend.
Right. So, like I say, the bulk of my report contains the factors that you should use in considering such a planning case. Staff did recommend approval of this based off of the 10 factors that you see in the report, and I had 7 conditions of approval. One of them which dealt with the lighting, saying it should be the minimum that the FAA requires, and nothing more than that. At the public hearing again on May 21, we did have 2 citizens, speak out against the tower request here. All of their documentation is contained in your packet here. Below that is a summary of kind of what happened at the public hearing. And so at the end of the public hearing, then the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this by a 5-0 vote based off of the 10 factors and the 7 conditions that are listed in your staff report. So with that, if you had further questions.
My one question is, and it concerns land ownership, because I've been involved in one of the situation before when there's been a discrepancy between the amount of land in between 2 properties that differed by who did the survey. And to clear that up, and council can probably help a little bit, but to clear that differential up, one party had to do a quiet title to regain ownership of that. And I think this was brought out somewhat difference between, in this case, that maybe both parties have been paying taxes on the same property, this little strip of land in here. And I just wondered if that had ever been resolved outside of one survey company said, no, that's not right. Ours is right. That would be my question on this. And has that ever been looked at, or is that proper to do that? I think my understanding from the talk that night was that there had been some question regarding that little small strip of land.
Yeah, there was some discussion on that, but really we were looking at from a land use perspective, and our job was to make sure that was there some type of easement in place if required here. That area up on there, that whole subdivision area and all those lots there. There's really a lot of issues, I think, with people dividing the land up there and not platting land. If it was platted, it would probably resolve a lot of those issues. But
of course, that platting has it's nothing to do with an 80 acres, does it?
No, it doesn't. No. But so I don't know. I mean, that's something that surveyors, like you said, they would get together and determine, who is right. They would research how they surveyed that property.
So that small strip of land that was in question has nothing to do with this application?
Right. It doesn't, yeah. It has something to do with it in the sense that we would want to see like some type of easement or make sure that the cell tower company has, an easement to cross that. But that's why I had them look into that a little bit further with their surveyor that prepared the site plan to see what is actually going on. If you read his letter, he said, well, it's just a culmination of multiple surveys being done in that area and different points of beginning and different ways to measure. And if you look at the legal descriptions, they still match up. It's just for whatever reason it's showing up on our parcel mapping as a small strip of land.
So that's more of a personal issue
Yeah.
than it is a
Right, for them
issue
to
that has
get that
to do
figured
with
out. Yeah,
this.
there is no strip of land in between there based off of what the surveyor has researched on that. And if you look at your site plan as well for the tower, it does not identify that strip of land either. In reading the legal descriptions, it does not exist out there, although we have it mapped that way.
Okay. If you're satisfied, I have
Yeah.
a little more satisfaction now.
I don't have any questions. Any more questions, Ron?
I don't have any more.
Okay. I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the planning and zoning case 2020-03 as presented by the Planning Commission.
Second. Any discussion?
I understand the situation. I've heard comments on that, and while I agree with some and I don't agree with some, why the Planning Commission has made this recommendation.
Yes. Okay. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes?
Commissioner Bush,
Yes. Mark, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
And thanks for attending.
It is time now for the county administrator report.
Okay. So I have a few items to go over.
Sure,
So
no problem.
first thing is we're looking into, or we're testing, I'm not sure if it's today or maybe in the next couple weeks, closed captioning, live closed captioning on our YouTube channel for the commission meetings.
Oh.
We had a concern or a question come through it actually came through the City of Hutch. Someone had mentioned to City of Hutch Human Relations Director, and she reached out to us about people that are hearing impaired for press releases or meetings would like to be able to live know what's going on at the county meetings, maybe related to COVID, but instead of at this time contracting with someone that did sign language and try to find a place for them in here to also televise it in this small room, to use YouTube's closed captioning. So we are testing that out. It's about, I think, $800-900 for the first 1,000 hours, which should last for county commission meetings, might last the whole year for that. So minimal cost, but it is to work on accommodations for the hearing impaired of Reno County citizens that want to know what's going on with county commission meetings in a live format. So we're testing that out, and once we know that's working, we will, publicize that and let people know about it. But we want to make sure we have all the hurdles out of the way before we say it's there. So.
Excuse me.
I think that's kind of a good idea to look at, because I've heard people comment, or a couple people have commented that they have trouble hearing our
Right.
program.
Well, we've been all over the place with our audio and our IT for prior years. I think this year we've spent the money and we've got the best equipment we've ever had, but if there's more that we can do, that's great. I'm not a fan at all of having an interpreter. It's very expensive, and you then have to have different interpreters lined up, and I'm sorry, but I don't know what the interpreter's saying and how my comments would be presented to people. With closed captioning, there's a much greater likelihood of an accurate reflection of what's being said by many people. So I would just tell you that kind of up front. And of course, I like the dollar piece of it. But I would just tell you up front, I would like the closed captioning because I think that's the easiest to manage and to take care of.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I agree, if it can be worked out.
Sure. I think it'd be worked out probably easier than having an interpreter here every single Tuesday for the rest of our
Oh,
lives.
yes. Yes.
So, okay. All right. Well.
And so,
okay.
yeah, when we did get this request, Shonda and Mike have been working on it for a little while to make sure that we get this out and, do this right. So
Do you have a timeline on this, or just kind of as it comes together?
I know Mike is down in the IT working on it. Maybe today, maybe next week.
Work in
It will-
progress.
It's a work
Okay.
in progress. We want to
Yeah.
make sure it's new to us,
Yes.
so we want to make sure that it's working properly. I would say by the end of June, we should be
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah, let's. I mean, I'm a big fan of take the time, do it right once, because once you do it and it looks half-assed, then you're fighting that whole battle to bring it back to life. So I agree with taking the time to get that right.
Okay.
Well, but that also would be nice for the planning and zoning discussions on the wind energy and things like that. If we can make that transportable, but I don't know what the equipment issues are. But that's something you might want to put a bug in his ear about.
And that should work if we have it in time by June 18th for that meeting.
Yeah,
Be on the
but
same
we'll be down in a
system.
veterans room.
We'll still be on the same, I think, system. I think Mike. I'll check with Mike on that one.
Working at it, but no guarantee for June 18th.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
right.
we're not putting a commitment out there, but it would be really nice to have something like that for that meeting on June 18th.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Hint.
Oh, he said he wanted just a week. I'm giving him like 3.
Not quite.
Well, close. Close enough. All right, sorry.
Another item, Dawn had informed me that there was some damage. They're working on a bridge south of Arlington, and over the weekend there was some vandalism on some county equipment. Some cranes, some windows were broken out. I think a computer was thrown in a river. Over $5,000 damage. They are getting things replaced, but I just want to make you aware of that we did have some vandalism of county property over the weekend down there.
And what actions are we taking to not have it happen again?
Dawn is setting up gaming videos, game video, like for hunting.
Oh, like game
hunting
gear?
type videos to cameras. So
Okay.
if people do that, we should have them on camera.
Okay.
Yeah. So
As long as, if Don's got a plan, I'm sure it's
He-
well thought out.
he does have a plan.
All right.
Another issue, just kind of let you know, the mezzanine above us up here in the courthouse, youth services will be having some, they'll be working on that probably the next month, a few days a week, cleaning up all the, what's right now storage units, file cabinets, old documents. We're having the clerk treasurer check to see if they need anything, but we're getting rid of all the stuff on the mezzanine to clear that out for future use.
Okay.
Then 5 Bugle for the fire district study. Last week, you guys, I was asked to maybe get an update of where we're at.
Mhm.
I talked with Adam. He contacted the consultant, and tentatively, they are to be here. The plan is June 25th through 29th for their on-site visit, and hopefully have a chance to meet with all the fire chiefs during that time.
Will he be available in the evening for those fire chiefs that have a permanent job?
From what I understood from Adam, weekends and evening, I think that may hit a weekend. Yes, he's going to understands that
Okay.
the people have day jobs, so if he's here in town from Wisconsin, I'm sure he's going to make sure he meets with them at whatever time is possible.
Yeah.
Will he be meeting with county commissioners or with you to talk about the concerns and the issues we have? And the purpose for the study, just to ensure that he's checking everything that we're concerned about?
I plan on meeting with him, and I'm sure Adam will, and I will get you any information if, any meetings with the commission.
And the fire chiefs will meeting one-on-one with him without anyone else.
I don't have his itinerary, so I'm not sure for sure. He may try to have group meetings. It depends on, probably the scheduling. But I'll let you know. When I find out more, I'll let you know on how he's going to do the meetings.
I would
for his
encourage
on-site
him
visit.
to be available opportunities for one-on-one,
Yeah.
where they could have personal without any potential for what they say is harming what they want to do in the future.
Right. I would encourage that as well. But like you said, let's have him send us his itinerary and his schedule, and then we can have input before he gets started.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
Then also last week it was asked for update on courthouse improvements. Just want to let you know Harlan will be here next week at the commission meeting to give an update on the three main projects, the weatherization, courthouse, or the earthquake damage, and the window replacement. So he will have some information, and it'll be in your packet for next week. But I wanted to give you a heads up on that. So. Budget workshops, I am still working. I have all the numbers in, as I mentioned last week, for budget request. Shonda and I are working with directors. We're having them give summaries of their department and their budgets, so that can be a part of the spreadsheets that you guys see when I bring it to you. We're just double checking all the numbers, make sure all the directors understand what the numbers in their summaries versus what the spreadsheet of changes that I had made to their budgets match.
Okay.
But I wanted to see if you guys were open for maybe an all-day work session, budget session, that to where if we schedule it for maybe 6 hours, 5 hours, 4, I would then have each director come in at different times during that day. You would have, in advance, you would get their budgets, the request. They would come in maybe for 30 minutes at a time, and you could ask any questions of them, or that's the thought of questions you may have or concerns about their budget to find out more about what their request is. This would be in June prior to receiving the revenue numbers in July, which would then, I could put it, the state form would be completed, and you would see how their budget requests with the revenues impact the mill levy.
Okay.
I just looked at a date, and I was thinking maybe on a Friday, like maybe June 19th.
You about an all-day meeting?
I don't know how long it'll last. Depends on the questions you guys have. How many questions? I was think
Well, I tell you,
there's 12.
I tell you this: at 3 o'clock, I will have 0 questions, and I want them out the door. And I don't think that's good government. So my suggestion would be 2 half-days, because you're going to keep my attention for 2 half-days. You're not going to keep anybody's attention for an all-day.
And it may only be
budget
4
time.
hours, and we may get through all of them. But right,
Well, that's being optimistic.
I try to be optimistic.
I appreciate that. So maybe
If we do want to put it in one day, I'd suggest over noon hour and have lunch.
I mean, I would suggest like in the morning of the 18th and the morning of the 19th. And then also for those of us that do have full-time jobs, we'd be able to at least get half a day's work done.
Right.
And
So
June
that'd be
8
my suggestion.
June 18th, we'll be busy that evening with
At 5:30, but that's why if we do it in
Yeah.
the morning, we'll have the whole afternoon to
So
do
get
work.
anything done we need to get done. So that'd be my suggestion, 18th and 19th in the morning.
It's fine.
I'll work on
I
it.
have to look at my calendar, but I don't think there's any problem.
okay.
You'll
So I'm
bring
thinking
donuts?
maybe
You'll
June.
bring donuts and coffee?
I will.
Okay. Starbucks.
Iced tea, I'll bring my own.
Or Metro to go. No, you're not a coffee guy?
I'm not a coffee. I never got old enough.
I'm like a junkie, so I'll drink yours. I will drink your coffee.
Do you want to begin these at 8 a.m., 9 a.m.?
That
9.
depends- Well, that depends on staff. I mean, what time
Yeah.
do you need to come in and get things done and get your stuff organized, answer emails and phone calls? Maybe 9's best.
For me, I'm usually here in plenty of time before 8 o'clock. You know, we could kind of start the beginning, the first maybe even half hour, is me giving a quick overview. Directors could then come in. So
So why
if
don't
we
we
start at 8 or 8:30 and then just
So why
go
don't
to
we start
noon.
8:30?
Yeah.
We'll start at 8:30, and then 9 o'clock would be our first appointment. And I think the other thing too is then we'll know after Thursday what we need on Friday, how fast they go, and but yeah. But I would encourage you to have the ones that you feel need the most discussion first. Not alphabetical or anything like that. Just if you have departments that, like the sheriff's department, because it's such a big budget, you have 100 employees, that should probably be one of the first ones we talk about. that may be an hour discussion, and yet when we talk to the register of deeds, that might be 15 minutes. I mean, I've been through this before. But I would put the heavy hitters first in the mornings on Thursday and Friday when we're fresh and have good coffee
All right, can't do that.
and apple fritters.
Your discretion.
Apple
You
fritter.
know
Apple
how
fritters.
much.
Right.
You get an idea how much time, so.
Right. Yeah, and I know which departments and which budgets are going to be have more conversations versus
Absolutely.
they're very simple budgets.
Yes.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to mention, or maybe not the last thing, CDBG COVID 19
Mhm.
grant, the Community Development Block Grant. Wanted to give a quick. I sent a possible cover letter
Mhm.
that explained that Reno County received $132,000. Now, not all of that can be used for the grant because there is the administrative cost. So we still will have between $117,000 and $120,000 to give away for grants. Some of the requirements of a business is they must be physically located in Reno County, but not in the city or not in the corporate limits of Hutchinson, because the city of Hutch has their own grant for the same amount.
I bet that made him mad.
The city?
Yeah.
I think there were 66 cities and counties in Kansas that received the initial funding. Almost all received the same amount, the dollar amount.
Oh, they
So
just
it doesn't.
did. They took the easy way out.
The state did. So the city of Hutch didn't receive less money because of us, because there were some cities that also got 132, but their county didn't have an application. So
Okay.
it didn't.
And this
affect
is
the
phase
cities.
one.
This is this part of the money.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't. There may be more later.
We just keep jumping with the questions. I'm sorry, but you said that the rules were fluid
Yes.
and there are different things going on. When will we have enough of a foundation to stand on to actually talk about how we grant these dollars out?
Are you talking about the CDBG money or the other money?
Well,
The CARES Act money.
I thought the
There-
CDGB also had some issues about what the rules were and what it covered. Is that right or not?
The criteria,
Criteria.
and that's what we're discussing today, kind of get to find out what you guys see fits. So in the cover letter,
Okay.
there's two different types of parts of the grant. So 1 to 5 employees, or I guess would have less money available is the recommendation, and it's kind of what the Hutch did also. And then 6 to 50 might have more money available. So in the cover letter, I mentioned for a business with 1 to 5 employees, up to $10,000 would be available per business, and if they had 6 to 50, that up to $20,000 would be available. Now you can change that. You could raise that amount, or you could lower it. I'm looking at an email from our grant administrator right now that she sent this morning, and it puts on here that for the 1 to 5 employees, which is the micro grant program, to allow $5,000 per business. And for the 6 to 50 employees, which is for the economic development program, to allow for $10,000. That's really your choice of what we put out there. But we would want to know that today or before we put the application online for people to start applying.
What's your recommendation?
If we get a lot, it really depends on the number of businesses. If we know that there's a lot of businesses that need help, I would go with the 5,000 and 10,000. But if we don't have as many, and I guess it could come back if we don't spend all the money, then could look at the $10,000 and $20,000.
So we're really looking. I think that's a good idea, and I thought about that before because a lot of times, you find yourself with $2,000 left over.
Right.
Well, you need to spend it somehow, so you have to have that, kind of that phase two. If we have X amount, it goes to these people, or gets divided up among these businesses.
Right.
So I like that idea of just putting into it the discussion of there's going to be a phase two, if any dollars are not allocated.
Okay.
Right.
That would be the intent if you went with the 5 to 10,000, or even the 10 to 20. But I think if you do the 10,000 and 20,000, which I put in the cover letter you saw, all of that will probably get spent
Okay.
right away. The 5 to 10 may leave a little bit of extra money.
Okay. I don't know, Ron, I have a strong opinion. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we've got to July 3 for applications. Is that correct?
That was my recommendation, is to allow through July 3rd.
Pretty quick
And
turnaround.
then that process, after that, the committee will take those applications, look at it, and determine.
So by that deadline,
Allocation.
then a committee that's put
Yeah.
together by the commission would look at all the applications, make a recommendation, and then would come back to the county commission for
And so if
formal
you get
approval.
50, let's just say you get 50 applications and 10 of them are 5 and under and the others are over 5, then the committee can make that determination and allocation appropriately, right?
Right, so
That would be my thought of how that
so you
program
could have the
works.
10,000 and 20,000 as the possible. It would then
Max.
max. It would match what the city of Hutch is doing, just for businesses that are looking.
And we might be,
That might get confused. We would be on the same page.
might be the maximum that maybe it's, for those applications might be to utilize that funds, might be 2 and 5, or it could be some other.
Right. It does not have to be the maximum.
Yeah.
This is just
Yeah.
here's the most.
But I think I'm fine with going with the maximum, just like you have
the
it.
10 and 20.
10 and 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a business that has between 1 and 5 employees, you can apply for up to $10,000 based on the criteria that we will tell you it is for.
Right.
And if you're a business that is 6 up to 50, then you'd be eligible for 20,000.
Up to.
Up to 20,000.
Up to 20,000.
Right. That's the
Okay,
max.
up
per
to
business. 20,000.
Do we have businesses that have more than 50? Because Siemens is in the city, right? Because it's all been annexed, all that property, so.
Yeah.
And I believe this grant, I think the guidelines of this grant is 50 is the max.
Oh.
So that is set by the state.
So never mind.
Right.
But if they have more than 50, they're not eligible then.
They would probably need money from maybe the CARES Act,
The CARES
some other
Act.
money that may be
Okay.
coming from the state.
So this is for, okay.
This is for more small businesses.
Yeah, smaller businesses, yes, definitely.
Right.
Okay, so we're going with 10 and 20,000. Okay. Up to 10, up to 20,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then these businesses must have at least 51% of their full-time equivalent jobs for persons for low to moderate or low to medium income households. And I don't know that exact number of what that is.
I
So,
was going to say that would be helpful if we knew what that number was.
It's on the Kansas Department of Commerce's website.
Check the Kansas Department of Commerce website. Okay, so
For
if
the
you want to
city.
make an application and fill out an application, then check with the Kansas Department of Commerce for the LMI dollar amounts.
okay.
Yes.
So let me ask you questions. So since we're doing a similar to the city, my company, City of Beverage, we cut 30 to 35 checks every 2 weeks. Some are part-time, most are full-time. So I would need to go to my staff and have them divulge to me what their household income is, right?
There
Because
is
it's
a,
not based on the salary check I write them, it's their household income. So if their wife or spouse or living girlfriend works, then they would need to divulge that information to me if they got a side job mowing lawns. I mean, so I would need to go to those 35 employees to see if I met that 51% requirement. Is that correct? Low to medium
I got a
income
couple.
houses is what I thought you said.
How else could you determine it?
yeah, you would have to find out of, and there's maybe
That's
not
not
the
gonna
exact.
go, that would not go over well.
So there's, and so I'd have the spreadsheet. So family size, you would click on how many people in their family. And then on income limits, it would look at, are they between
30?
13,600 to 36,200? I mean, different ranges.
As
So
a
you may
hou-
not need the exact amount of their
It's a
household income,
range, yeah.
but ranges. And then the number of people in their household to
Okay.
determine that.
I like that better, so I could say, is your household income between 0 and 50,000 or 51,000 and 100, I mean, whatever, I'm just putting numbers out here. So then my employee would then come back to me and they'd say, Well, I'm in that range, and that's all they'd
Yeah.
have to say?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is
That's-
Is
that's-
July 3rd long enough?
What's that?
Is July 3rd enough time to get all this done?
Well, it's, okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm
It's
just,
going to be put out today, right? I mean,
We were
information.
going to actually put the application, there's a webinar from the Department of Commerce on June 11th that kind of goes over this for us to watch and get some instructions, answer questions. So we're going to put it out after that.
Oh,
So
okay.
June 11th or 12th is when we were going to put it
It's
out.
Thursday.
The
It's
information,
just a couple days, yeah.
the information can be sent out as far as, yes, we have received this grant, and after June 11th, the full details will be known for the committee.
June 11th, after that is when we're going to publicize it.
Oh.
We may already have it on the website.
Okay.
I know Shonda was going to work with Mike about getting it on the website. We may just not put it on the homepage yet. So we can still have people applying. I've already received one from a South Hutch business that accidentally went to the city of Hutchinson. The planning department of the city of Hutch forwarded it to me. So we already have one.
we have an applicant already?
We already have an applicant
Well, good.
with the LMI filled out. Yes.
Okay.
So that has already taken place. So I would say we can accept applications now, but we're going to actually put it out and then have the chamber, what they did for the city of Hutch, do a mass email. They're going to do the same for us for when we put ours out.
Okay.
Ours will have a little bit longer time frame for people to fill out.
Okay.
And grant funds, just, and I put it in here, but are to be used for working capital such as employee wages, rent, mortgage payments, utilities, and to purchase up to 60 days of inventory needed to reopen their business. So those are kind of some of the parameters of what this money can be used for.
Okay. When do you think we'll have the money to hand out? I mean, like actually somebody transfers $133,000 into the county budget for us to then cut checks from.
I would say with the deadline of the 3rd, the next week, the committee looks at it, reviews them, brings it back to the commission. So July 13th, I'm looking at making sure that's a Tuesday. July 14th would be a day I could see this being before the county commission for approval of the businesses that had applied.
A slate.
A slate. Once that's done, then we can
And we just cut one check for the total amount. I mean, it's not that.
per
it's not-
business.
Yeah, per business. I mean, it's not that much money. So it's not that much money, but it's okay. And so they would actually have that money to work with, mid-July,
Mid to late July, yes.
mid to late July.
By August 1.
When do we have the money?
That was my question. I mean,
We don't
I
have
mean-
it today, but we'll have
yeah.
it.
Well, I'm not
Y- y-
approving the cutting of a check until the EFT is in our account of the 132,000.
Yeah.
But having said that, then getting it out as quickly as possible
Right.
would be the goal. And that's kind of why, maybe you're saying August 1st, and if it's sooner, that's even better.
Yeah, but,
It's just I've seen,
and hopefully it's by August 1st.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
We
As
should-
soon as we have the funds, then that we can
Give it all out.
provide those funds to the businesses.
Yeah, right.
No
We need-
guarantees on time limits. We can't,
No.
because we don't know.
We get some general dates and then also put that caveat
after
in
the
there. When we get the
process.
money, you get the money.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like sales. It all sounds good until you get paid.
It's kind of like closing real estate. When it's closed, it's done.
Okay. And
Committee members, the other thing I want to talk about is committee members.
Okay.
My recommendation was probably to have maybe 5 committee members. The initial thought was someone from administration, someone, or Joe, myself, Shonda, someone, have a county commissioner, have someone from the chamber, and then 2 business people. Commissioner Sellers did send me a name of a couple people. I had also let him know before he was going to be gone, knowing he was going to be gone today.
Mm-hmm.
That thought, and he sent a couple names. Greg Gordon, who is a past president of a manufacturing company and retired, and Greg Benz, retired CEO of First National Bank.
I know
Those
Greg,
are a couple names he threw out.
I know Greg Benz, he'd be great. I don't know the other name. The other name again was,
Greg Gordon.
do you know what company or business he was with? That one's not ringing a bell with me.
And
Okay. I would like you to sit in on it, because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one managing the money, the process, and getting the phone calls. Would you agree with that?
I'd agree.
And then I would nominate Commissioner Hurst or Commissioner Sellers to sit on the steering committee as elected official. I feel like I've been pretty busy with the coronavirus, so I've been stepping up.
I understand.
Okay.
You have been.
Well,
You
no,
have-
I mean, I'm
you
not
put
looking
a lot of hours in.
I'm
it.
not looking for a pat on the back as much as I'm looking to not be on this committee, which would be fun, but I just don't think I have the time really. I will tell you this, Ron, with your Quest experience and the fact that you truly are, if you will, the rural county representative, I would really think that you would be a good job at doing this. And as these came in, you would have more of a, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. I hear what that is. And I think you'd have a better job than I would do with that. And I'm not going to, I think you would do the best job of the commission members that we have. And that's a honest, from the heart statement.
If the other commissioners would approve that, I would do that.
I think Sellers will approve it as long as it's not him. So I think you're on the committee.
We got to make sure, though, that he continues with this Quad County meeting.
Yes. Well, and he may need to represent us as the chair on the CARES program. And
That's
that's going
right.
to be a lot,
Yeah.
potentially a lot of work. And so that's something to think about as well. So if you're willing to serve, that'd be great. I mean, I think you could just do an email to Commissioner Chair Sellers and get his okey doke, and that would be considered a consensus
Yeah, as long
decision.
as he okays it, too.
Yeah. And I might have some name. Can you think of any names off the top of your head that would be,
I was just pondering that this morning, and I've got some other things going on. But yeah, I think I can come up with a suggestion of maybe a retired banker or you want a cross-section, I think, if you're going to, on this committee.
I think it would be good to have like a banker from the rural area, because they would not be applying for these dollars, but they would have a good sense of the people in that community, whether it was a bank in Pretty Prairie or, I don't know.
That's a couple names. One was Sid Graber from Pretty Prairie, and the other one would be Arden Vernon, who's a retired banker who would not have any interest in any business that way.
That'd be great. I think that's what we need, personally.
And I know Gunner from People's Bank out at Fair out there would be Pleasant View.
Okay.
But I'm sure that most of the bankers are awfully busy right now too. But
Active ones. That's why Greg
Active
Benz
ones.
is a good name, because he's retired.
and that's why I was thinking maybe even a retired banker from a rural area.
That'd be great.
If you're looking at a rural area.
I am. I mean, I think that's typically what I think that's the primary focus of this. And since this is dollars management, I always think it's good to have financial people on it. So Ben's and another banker from the true rural area, because I mean Ben's was the First National Bank. He's very smart, very capable.
And they have a lot of rural loans.
And they have a lot of rural farming loans, and so I think he would know a lot about that.
Because farming comes under a different category. Livestock and farming comes under a different category than this would.
Which is good, because they're not getting any of these dollars, but they know the area and the business.
And if you guys want to think of different names and come up, it doesn't have to be decided today, because that committee won't even, since the application's not even out yet, that committee will probably be meeting the first full week of July.
Okay.
So you have a couple more meetings to, go over some of that and
Right.
And
Bring
some
it
of
back.
them may have other obligations that we've come up with a name, so you'll need a couple, three
Yeah.
more names too.
You said a chamber member?
I thought
Chamber
maybe
member or a chamber board member?
I was thinking maybe talk to Deborah, see if, or staff, or if she has a board member. That was just a thought. If you want, or you can have myself, Commissioner Hurst, and then just 3 people you choose at large, a couple of bankers and
Mhm.
or whatever. It was just a thought.
No, it's
But to keep it at 5 people, that way it doesn't get so large that
right.
you never get anything done.
Yeah, well, I agree, 5. You got a cross-section then.
She might come up with some names
Yeah,
from the chamber board or the chamber EDEC group, Economic Development Group.
Okay.
And so that's a large group, the EDEC group. That's a pretty cross-reference. And so there might be a board member on the big, I don't know, let's call it the chamber board or with the EDEC group that would meet the criteria of being a citizen that represents a rural area,
But not who qualifies,
but not who qualifies for any of these dollars.
that's right.
Right. And I think if you said to her, that's what we're looking for, and then she could figure out.
I think Deborah could come up with a good,
Yes.
good committee member.
Yeah, yes. And that way there's a good tie-in with the chamber as well from the Reno County perspective. So I like that idea. And that, I mean, you're already at potentially 6 people. I would just shut her down at that point.
Okay.
But I mean, I think what Ron said about a maybe retired banker from the rural area, that would have a lot of contacts, a lot of information. And then,
And is not actively involved in loaning to businesses in the community anymore.
Right.
hence the term retired.
And retired,
That's,
yes.
that's what I said, retired.
Exactly.
Yeah, retired. They're
Which is-
retired.
Which is one of the reasons you recommended.
Or
Yes.
former banker that's doing something else.
Yes.
Joe, it's all working up here.
No doubt in my mind.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
No conflict of interest.
What else do you have?
Okay.
Just wanted to point
Or
out.
as little as possible.
Just a reminder, as Mark was up here, just to point out that Mark's not a director, that he's
Oh.
just the planner.
Mhm.
The director, he reports to Don.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
So
I
people
made that,
don't-
I made that mistake.
So people don't think that he
Oh,
is a
did
director.
you say that? I didn't even
Yeah, I
catch it.
said that.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it. Okay.
That's usually.
I just-
Well, tell him he's got a title with no job and with no salary increase, but a nice title.
Okay, and then I also was at the NAACP town hall meeting last week, and like Tom, I was in a suit still from the commission meeting earlier. And there's no air conditioning, but that was a great meeting to be at.
Oh, good.
And there was great county representation with Commissioner Sellers, Commissioner Hurst, the sheriff,
Good.
the district attorney, myself. I saw Deborah from the chamber, so there was good representation of the community there.
Good.
Um,
Did you speak?
no,
Okay.
I didn't.
Did you?
No,
All right.
I was there to listen.
Okay. Good.
Didn't even fill out a card. I was there to listen.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I appreciate you attending.
That's all I have.
That was it?
Did you want more?
No?
I could think of things.
No? County Councilor, anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ron, any final
I have-
words?
I have no more.
Okay, we're going to consider this meeting adjourned of the Reno County Commission meeting. And that's it. Thank you.